to. It's kind of like when you, again, I've said this before, you get only so many firsts and lasts within one.
A quiet but powerful question lingers in the air. What do we discover about a person when we read the last words they ever wrote?
Thing. And for this book, that's united in one for me, meaning it's the first time I am reading my husband's last book.
That question has now taken center stage as new reflections emerge about Charlie Kirk's final book, words that have become far more than printed pages to his wife, Erica, as she finds herself unable to turn to the last chapter.
It's not the last time I'll read the book, but it's the first time to read his final words. And it's hard to think that it's so divine too, that of all of the books that he leaves for us.
If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you never miss stories that explore the deeper human moments behind the headlines. Erica's emotional struggle with finishing Charlie's book is not simply about grief. It reveals something intimate, something profoundly human about the connection between a writer and the people he cared for most.
It's not a book about politics. It's not a book. I mean, although he does talk about some things politically within here, and he does talk about worshiping idols, and he does talk about, different philosophies and theologies that have implications towards.
When she explains that she cannot bring herself to read the final chapter because it contains the last sentences her husband ever wrote, she opens a window into a deeply personal moment, one that transforms a public figure into a husband, a thinker, and a man who spent his final days wrestling with ideas that mattered far beyond politics.
Certain things, but he, of all the books to write, he writes something about honoring God, and he writes it in a way where he literally became the subject matter expert on it, because he wasn't trying to preach and lecture to you, you need to do this. He was like, you know what, guys, I did it, and this made an impact in my life, and these are the final words that I will leave you with.
In sharing her experience, she articulates not only her own loss, but the weight of knowing that every word on that final page captures a thought Charlie intended to leave behind, a final message he wanted the world to hear. What makes Erica's reflection even more striking is the central theme of Charlie's book.
He went on campus knowing that communication was key, but he also knew that if the students, if whoever he was communicating with also took some time to nourish their soul, to nourish their brain, to actually give themselves a better night's sleep.
Known widely for political commentary, Charlie instead chose to devote his final work to faith, rest, and spiritual renewal. This shift gives the book an unexpected depth, an introspective turn that reveals what he believed mattered most when all the noise faded away.
To take care of themselves holistically, there would be way more of a difference.
According to Erica, the book doesn't center on policy battles or current events. It centers on something quieter, older, and perhaps more enduring, the condition of the human soul. She notes how deliberate Charlie was in stepping back from public debates to explore concepts many overlook in a fast-moving world: rest, Sabbath rhythms, and the spiritual habits that shape the inner life. For readers familiar with his usual work, the tone is almost startling, but for Erica, it is precisely this unexpected focus that makes the book feel sacred. Throughout her reflections, Erica describes how Charlie explored topics like idols, philosophies, and belief systems, not in an accusatory way, but as a plea for people to examine the forces that influence their lives. His message, she explains, was not about pointing fingers at society, but about encouraging individuals to reflect deeply on their own priorities. He addressed the subtle ways distractions can pull people off course, not by lecturing or scolding, but by using stories, biblical insights, and personal experiences. For Erica, these portions of the book reveal a side of Charlie many never saw, a man genuinely searching for what it means to live faithfully, calmly, and with purpose. One of the most meaningful aspects for Erica is how Charlie wove his own spiritual journey into the book. He didn't write as an expert issuing instructions from a distance. He wrote as someone who had struggled, learned, and wanted to pass on lessons that made a real difference in his own life. Erica emphasizes that his writing feels personal, not polished for public consumption, but honest about questions he wrestled with. She describes how Charlie spoke about moments when he felt overwhelmed, lessons about humility, and the ways rest helped him find clarity. These weren't abstract theories. They were practices he believed transformed him from the inside out. For Erica, knowing these were the ideas Charlie held onto near the end of his life adds a depth that makes the book resonate even more profoundly. Erica strongly believes that Charlie wanted readers to understand how slowing down, caring for the soul, and embracing rest could help heal the country, not through political solutions alone, but through healthier individual lives. She describes how Charlie spoke often about the emotional strain people carry, the mental fatigue so many ignore, and the way constant busyness can erode compassion, patience, and perspective. He argued that a society unable to rest becomes a society unable to listen, unable to empathize, and unable to reflect. For Charlie, healing did not begin in institutions. It began with people reclaiming a sense of quiet, breathing room, and spiritual grounding. Erica notes that he hoped readers would see that genuine change often starts in the places where no cameras are running: kitchen tables, quiet mornings, intentional family time, and evenings without the constant glow of a screen. A key message Erica highlights is Charlie's insistence that rest is not a sign of weakness. He challenged a cultural mentality that glorifies relentless productivity and constant motion. In his writing, he describes rest as a discipline, a choice, and even an act of courage. Instead of viewing stillness as laziness, he wrote about it as a moment of reconnection, to family, to purpose, and to God. Erica explains that for Charlie, the Sabbath was not about rule-keeping, but about aligning one's heart with what truly matters. She believes this may be one of the most significant contributions of the book, the notion that rest is not an escape from responsibility, but a way to approach responsibility with a healthier mind and heart. When asked what stood out to her most while reading, Erica mentions being struck by Charlie's deep understanding of Sabbath history and the biblical origins behind it. She describes her surprise at how much research Charlie had done, tracing the idea of Sabbath not just through scripture, but through centuries of tradition. His writing laid out how various cultures, families, and communities embraced rest, not simply as a religious obligation, but as a means of strengthening relationships, improving well-being, and cultivating gratitude. Erica found it moving that Charlie wanted readers to understand the historical grounding behind this practice, not as something outdated and irrelevant, but as something that had shaped civilizations for thousands of years. What surprised Erica even more was how thoughtfully Charlie connected these ancient ideas to American traditions. He wrote about former blue laws, community norms that once encouraged people to slow down, take a break from commercial activity, and spend time with one another. Charlie's point was not to idealize the past, but to observe how communities once embraced rhythms that brought people together rather than pulling them apart. Erica explains that he saw value in examining those earlier customs because they reminded people that society functioned differently when rest was built into the cultural rhythm. To him, this wasn't about enforcement, but about recognizing that shared pauses in life had benefits people are only now beginning to appreciate again. Erica also reflects on how dramatically modern life has shifted from those earlier rhythms. She talks about the constant presence of devices, phones that buzz, screens that glow, notifications that pull attention in 100 directions. She believes Charlie understood how easy it is for technology to dominate the mind, leaving people feeling restless, distracted, and disconnected from meaningful moments. Charlie wrote about how noise, both literal and digital, can drown out the quiet spaces where reflection and growth occur. Erica shares her own experience with this challenge, explaining how difficult it has become for many families to find uninterrupted time together. Charlie's writing pointed to these concerns not with criticism but with compassion, acknowledging that the modern world makes rest increasingly difficult to protect. What Erica appreciates most, however, is Charlie's practical approach. He didn't simply describe the problem. He offered simple, realistic ideas for restoring balance. Nature walks, he suggested, were more than exercise. They were opportunities to breathe, observe, and appreciate God's creation without distraction. He encouraged unplugging from technology, not as a punishment, but as an invitation to enjoy moments fully present. Perhaps his most creative idea was what Erica calls the family Sabbath box, a place to set aside phones, distractions, and anything that interrupts meaningful time together. Charlie believed that such intentional pauses could strengthen families, deepen conversations, and remind people of what truly holds them together. For Erica, these ideas feel not only practical, but deeply hopeful. Taken together, all of Erica's reflections paint a vivid and unexpectedly intimate picture of a man whose final written words centered on peace, purpose, and spiritual grounding. What becomes clear is that this was not a book written to stir public debate or to strengthen political influence. It was something far more personal. It was a book written with the intention of helping people slow down, step out of the noise for a moment, and look inward. The themes Charlie explored, rest, faith, healthy rhythms, and a deeper sense of balance, carry weight in a new way now, in light of his passing. They echo more strongly because readers understand these were among his final thoughts, the ideas he believed were important enough to leave behind. For Erica, that reality turns the book into both a gift she treasures and a challenge she struggles with. Every sentence invites readers to consider how they live their own lives, but for her, each word also forces her to revisit the last messages her husband ever put into the world, knowing they came from a place that was deeply personal and quietly profound. Erica explains that the emotional complexity of reading the book is something she never anticipated. On one hand, she feels grateful that Charlie left behind something so meaningful, something thoughtful, something generous, something that reflects his heart more clearly than any public speech ever could. But on the other hand, turning those pages requires her to confront the finality of his life in a way that feels almost too heavy to carry. Each chapter reminds her of conversations they once had, quiet mornings they shared, and moments when he talked openly about the importance of stepping back from the rush of everyday life. The final chapter, which she still cannot bring herself to read, represents the moment when she must accept that there are no more words coming from him. The story ends there, and for Erica, that ending feels like a door she is not ready to touch, let alone open. In many ways, Erica's journey through the book is not just a story of grief. It is also a story of rediscovery. She sees the writing not only as an expression of Charlie's beliefs, but as a reflection of the man she knew outside the public eye. Away from the spotlight and the pressures of public life, Charlie was someone who cherished quiet mornings, who believed in thoughtful conversations, and who valued the moments that were small but meaningful. He was the husband who enjoyed slow walks, who appreciated the simplicity of sitting still, and who often wrestled with deep questions about life, purpose, and faith. Erica remembers how he sometimes paused mid-sentence, as if weighing each word before choosing the one that felt right. She recognized that same thoughtful pattern in his writing, and reading it now reminds her of the gentler side of him, one that much of the world never had the chance to fully see. His reflections on rest and spiritual grounding were not random topics he selected for the sake of writing a book. They were ideas he genuinely lived by, or at least tried to. Erica recalls how he valued placing boundaries around his time, and how he believed that slowing down was necessary, not optional. The way he wrote about rest was not theoretical. It was about the seasons of his own life, moments when he felt stretched too thin, times when he found clarity only after stepping away from the relentless demands of work, and periods when reconnecting with God helped him regain a sense of direction. These insights were born from personal experience, not distant observation, and that authenticity comes through on every page. The emotional weight of the final chapter is only part of why Erica struggles to read it. The deeper reason is that she sees the book as a continuing conversation between her and Charlie. As long as she hasn't finished it, there is still another moment with him waiting. The last chapter stands like a final doorstep she cannot yet cross because it symbolizes the moment when their shared conversations become memories instead of lived experiences. She knows that reading it will bring closure, but she also knows closure can sometimes feel like loss all over again. As more people begin to hear Erica's reflections, The book is taking on a new life of its own, not simply as another publication, but as a testament to the importance of rest and spiritual renewal in a world that rarely slows down. In the beginning, some readers picked it up expecting commentary or analysis, but many found something deeper, something they did not know they were looking for. The message of the book resonates not because it is revolutionary, but because it is timely. People everywhere are dealing with exhaustion, distraction, and the feeling that life is becoming increasingly crowded with noise. Charlie's invitation to pause, reflect, and create healthier rhythms feels almost radical in its simplicity. It reminds readers of what they may have forgotten, that stillness has value, and that slowing down can restore the parts of a person that daily life tends to wear away. Younger readers have found meaning in his encouragement to unplug from devices, to take breaks from constant connectivity, and to spend time outdoors. Parents have connected with his reminders about the importance of shared family moments and the value of being fully present with loved ones. Older readers have appreciated his reflections on traditions of rest that stretch back thousands of years. In this way, the book has cross-generational boundaries, speaking to people in different life stages and with different needs, yet offering something relatable to all of them. What makes the book's emerging influence even more notable is the way it reflects a growing cultural hunger for rest, real, meaningful rest, not simply the pause between one busy moment and the next. Modern life is filled with constant notifications, endless tasks, and a pace that can feel unsustainable. Charlie's writing challenges that pace gently but firmly, inviting readers not to simply work harder at managing life, but to reevaluate the entire rhythm they are living within. Erica believes this is why his message resonates so strongly now. People are not just tired, they are stretched emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. They're looking for something grounding, something steady, something that brings them back to what truly matters. Charlie's book speaks directly to that need. As readers continue to share their experiences, many have expressed that the book helped them feel seen, helped them articulate something they had not been able to name. For some, it validated feelings of burnout they had ignored. For others, it sparked conversations within families about slowing down, prioritizing one another, and creating intentional routines of rest. And for many, it simply provided a moment of clarity in the midst of life's noise. Erica takes comfort in these responses because they show that Charlie's words continue to have purpose, even though he is no longer here to speak them himself. In the end, Erica's reflections remind us that the most powerful messages are often the simplest ones. They do not require dramatic language or urgent calls to action. Instead, they rest in truths that feel universal. Take time to breathe, to reflect, to reconnect, and to cherish the people around you. These messages are not new, but they are easy to forget in the rush of modern life. And perhaps that is the legacy Charlie hoped to leave. Not a final argument, not a final debate, but an invitation to find peace, to create moments of stillness, and to live with more intention in a world that rarely pauses long enough for anyone to truly catch their breath. If you found this report meaningful, consider subscribing for more thoughtful coverage.